Adjudication, in its broadest sense, is just an action in the district court. However, a general stream adjudication is a special type of court case. This isn't like a criminal case, so there are no grand juries involved. State law establishes that the judicial branch has the authority to determine water rights, but also incorporates an important role for the state engineer. The general stream adjudication joins and binds all water users and the state engineer as parties to the litigation. The purpose of the litigation is to define and settle all of the water rights in a specific geographic area. Adjudication is governed by Utah State Code Title 73, Chapter 4. Every major river drainage in the state of Utah is currently or has been under a general stream adjudication order. Some of these adjudications were petitioned by water users to the state engineer, and others have been court-ordered by expanding the scope of an existing dispute among parties. The map on this slide shows each of the general stream adjudications in the state. The very earliest general stream adjudications took place in the 1920s on the Sevier, Weber, and Virgin River basins. Let's talk about why we conduct general adjudications. I mentioned a general stream adjudication joins and binds all water users. An important component of this concept is the inclusion of pre-statutory water rights. As you are likely aware, Utah became a state in 1896. However, settlement of the area began in 1847, almost 50 years earlier. Furthermore, the very first state water laws didn't become effective until 1903 for surface rights and 1935 for underground rights. Article 17 of the Utah Constitution addressed these pre-statutory rights and declared that all existing rights to the use of any of the waters in this state for any useful or beneficial purpose are hereby recognized and confirmed. The general stream adjudication is the tool that defines these rights and brings them into the water rights system. Another component of joining and binding all water users is the inclusion of the federal government. Two important events form the basis of what we call a Federal Reserve water right. First, in 1908, the Supreme Court issued a decision that included what is now known as the Winters Doctrine. In short, the court determined that when the federal government reserves land from the public domain, it also reserves a water right sufficient for the purposes of the reservation. This doctrine originally applied to American Indian tribes, but also applies to other federal reservations such as national parks and national forests. Then, in 1952, the McCarran Amendment further defined the federal government's relationship with the states, making it possible for the federal government to waive its sovereign immunity so that these Federal Reserve rights could be defined in a state-based general stream adjudication. There are other benefits brought by general adjudication. By joining and binding all water users, general adjudications help prevent a multiplicity of lawsuits and define a clear and organized water right picture in an area. Furthermore, during the adjudication, each water right is evaluated for non-use, with unused water rights being forfeited and underused water rights being reduced. Ultimately, the final objective of a general stream adjudication is to obtain a final comprehensive decree on all water rights within an area. This objective is even more important with the critical water-based decisions our state will make in the future. These decisions can only be made with good, accurate information. This is the adjudication process as detailed in Utah State Code Title 73, Chapter 4. We'll review the process generally, and then we'll break the process into smaller pieces for more detailed discussion. To begin, the adjudication process is initiated in one of two ways. First, as mentioned, water users may petition the state engineer to file an action in the district court to initiate an adjudication. Alternatively, an action involving several water rights may be converted into a general water right adjudication. The adjudication process can be thought of as having three phases represented here by the three different tile colors. After the petition, the first phase of the process continues with a notice of commencement, summons, and a public meeting. This phase ends with the notice to file claims. With the notice to file claims, all claimants are required to prepare a water user's claim. Failure to respond at this time may result in the claimant never being able to assert a water right in the future. The second phase encompasses the list of unclaimed rights, final summons, and the decree on the list of unclaimed rights. After receiving all of the water user's claims in an area, a list is prepared of all water rights for which no water user claim was received. This list is published with the intention that these rights be abandoned by the court. The final phase of the adjudication process is the longest and involves the investigation of each and every water right. The state engineer develops a proposed determination of all of the water rights which is filed with the court. Opportunity is given to all parties to object if desired. Upon the resolution of objections, the court renders a final decree on the proposed determination. The decree represents the end of the adjudication process. Let's go into more detail on each of these phases. Phase 1 begins with the petition. This is typically not relevant today. If you remember a few slides back, all of the state of Utah is presently subject to general stream adjudications. The state engineer typically splits these larger adjudication boundaries into smaller divisions and subdivisions. For each area, division, or subdivision, the state engineer will publish a notice in the newspaper designated by the court once a week for 2 consecutive weeks. This notice will have the name of the action, as well as the court's location and the name of the water source that is involved. A summons will then be sent by mail to potential claimants. This includes all property owners in the area, as well as the owners of all known water rights in the area being adjudicated. This summons is also published in the newspaper designated by the court once a week for 5 weeks. Next, the state engineer will hold a public meeting in the adjudication area to inform the water right holders and claimants about the adjudication process. You will notice that statute requires that a public meeting be held during each phase of the adjudication process. Following the first public meeting, the state engineer will send a notice to claimants to file a statement of claim or a water user's claim. Claimants then have 90 days from the date of the notice to file a claim with the state engineer or their respective district court. Claimants may request a 30-day extension, but must do so prior to the conclusion of the 90 days. Claimants who fail to file a claim within the time frame or the authorized extension period will risk being prevented from asserting their claim in the future. Let's look at a sample of a water user's claim. A water user's claim is simply a form provided by the state engineer's office on which a claimant describes their water right during an adjudication. You can see 2 examples on this page. While this form looks like many other forms the division uses, we understand that it can be challenging for most people to prepare. As such, when we begin an adjudication area, we have staff members prepared to help claimants prepare their water user's claim. Additionally, when we mail the notice to file claims, we provide a water user's claim form to each party. In the case of a known water user, the water user's claim matches the known details of the water right. In this case, the water user may only need to sign and return the form. In all other cases, a blank water user's claim is provided by mail. It is important to note that a water user's claim is only required on perfected water rights. Examples of a perfected right include a certificated right, a decreed right, a diligence claim, or an underground water claim. A shareholder in an irrigation company normally does not need to file a separate water user's claim as long as their irrigation company files a claim on their behalf. Moving on to Phase 2 of the adjudication process. At the conclusion of the 90-day claim filing period, the state engineer prepares and files a list of unclaimed rights with the court. The list of unclaimed rights contains all the known rights for which no water user's claim was received. Notice of this list is again provided to all potential claimants by mail, and a second public meeting is held. Potential claimants are given a 90-day period to object and remove their right if it is incorrectly included. Lastly, the state engineer conducts a final search for potential claimants, publishes a final summons, and motions the court for a decree on the list of unclaimed rights. Once entered, this decree has the effect of abandoning the rights on the list of unclaimed rights and prohibits all claimants from asserting a water right claim in the future. Once all the claimants have filed their respective water user's claim and the list of unclaimed rights has been decreed, division staff will then begin the process of evaluating each claim. This evaluation includes conducting a field visit to identify the point of diversion, verify the claimed uses, and prepare a map. A document is then prepared called a State Engineer's Recommendation, or SER, which is mailed to the claimant and serves as a preliminary indication of what will later be described in the proposed determination. A memorandum is also prepared which describes the evaluation and conclusions in greater detail. It's important here to talk about the type of recommendations you might see if you're subject to an adjudication. Most often we conduct our evaluation and we verify the water right. In this case, the SCR simply matches the details of the water right. Sometimes, however, we discover that the water right isn't being used as authorized, or perhaps not to the full extent of the right. In this case, the SCR might differ from what was authorized. Sometimes we find no evidence of actual use during our evaluation, or the claim might not represent a valid right to the use of water. In this case, division staff prepare an SCR that describes the water right as disallowed. Throughout the adjudication, we try to be very open with each claimant and permit the water user to provide additional information as necessary to refute the recommendation. We frequently amend SCRs throughout the adjudication process. Finally, once all of the water rights have been evaluated, the state engineer files the proposed determination with the court. The proposed determination represents the state engineer's recommendation to the court as to the status and nature of water rights within the respective boundary. The state engineer provides notice to claimants by mail of how to view or obtain a copy and instructs the claimant regarding their obligation to file an objection within 90 days if dissatisfied. The state engineer also prepares and publishes an accompanying Hydrographic Survey Map, which is made available for download from the division's website. Hard copies can also be provided by visiting one of the division's office locations. A final public meeting is held shortly after the filing of the proposed determination. During this meeting, the contents of the proposed determination are discussed, and instructions are given how to file an objection if desired. Once the objection period has ended, the state engineer begins the process of objection resolution. This process can take many years in some cases. In the case of objections from a water user against the state engineer's recommendation, we may reevaluate the water right based on new information. If warranted, the proposed determination is amended through the court. Things can get more complex in the case of objections between two or more water users. In these cases, the state engineer typically takes the role of facilitator. Where water users are able to reach an agreeable solution, the proposed determination is likewise amended through the court. So in review, let's talk about the two key deliverables of the adjudication process. This is a typical page from a proposed determination. The proposed determination represents the state engineer's recommendation to the court of all the water rights within a specific adjudication boundary. At the end of the claim evaluation period, this document is filed with the court and distributed to water users within the adjudication boundary. As you can see, the proposed determination is simply a description of each water right using the same features common to all water rights, including ownership, quantity of water, points of diversion, nature of use, period of use, and place of use. Turning to the Hydrographic Survey Map, it is important to consider that these maps represent a snapshot in time. These maps are not maintained as water rights move and shift in the years following an adjudication. They are simply intended to be a graphical representation of what was found during the adjudication process. Once a proposed determination has been filed with the court, hard copy originals of the Hydrographic Survey Maps are made available at the Salt Lake City office as well as regional offices. Also, digital copies can be viewed online. Finally, a few last words on Federal Reserve rights. As mentioned earlier, one of the important purposes of water right adjudications is to join and bind all water users in an area. The federal government owns approximately 63% of all land in the state of Utah. As such, any adjudication would be incomplete without the inclusion of federal lands. Examples of federal lands include national parks and monuments, military reservations, U.S. Forest Service lands, Bureau of Land Management lands, and American Indian reservations. In order to participate in a state-based water right adjudication, the U.S. government must waive their sovereign immunity, making them subject to the state's water laws. The federal government has been joined in some, but not all, areas of the state. When the state engineer's office determines that the negotiation of Federal Reserve rights is critical to the water right picture, we will coordinate with the federal government to get them joined to the adjudication. In all cases, the state engineer has taken the position that negotiation is the preferred method of resolving Federal Reserve water rights.